Hey, we're chatting with Ian Campbell from nucleusresearch.com. We're going to find out all about Ian's book called The Value Sale. We're going to find out about return on investments and total cost of ownership, TCO. We're going to be talking about speaking with your customers and figuring out how they can improve your business and everything that comes with that. We're going to hear some amazing stories. So Ian, glad to be speaking with you.
Hey, Robert, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you. And so, what are your accomplishments? What are the brags? What's the elevator pitch? What are you focused on lately?
Well, certainly Nucleus has been focused on value for a long time. We've been around for, boy, over 20 years, which I sort of hate saying sometimes. And we really help folks understand value, and it's been great to get that out as a book lately. So that was a big accomplishment. Working with salespeople, especially as the market tightens, has been fantastic and gratifying. And I've been doing a lot of teaching at the local colleges here, so that's been fun as well.
Fantastic. Fulfilling it in many ways and adding value and solving problems and helping people and making money and everything that goes with that. And so, if someone were to ask you, what problem do you solve when some company comes to you and they say, I need help, we have this problem, you work your magic, you solve it. What is the problem being solved in that case?
Yeah, so the number one problem that we work with when we work with vendors is how to articulate a value message. While, folks will have what we might call shiny object syndrome. They've got something great that they found and they think the clients will come. What we help them do and what we really do focus on is articulating a value message. How does it help people increase productivity, reduce cost, increase sales in some way? So how do I take a good idea and turn it into a crisp marketing message that somebody can boil down to a pitch to a decision maker? And we do that from both a marketing and sales side. So, really understanding how to crystallize that message down to a few key components that really resonate with the salesperson, with ultimately a customer.
And that seems like sort of a tricky problem to solve, right? Because as you described that, you figure that, well, there's this company that they have a product, they've worked really hard on it, and they probably want to brag about their own accomplishments, but who cares about that? And then maybe you pile in some of the facts and the logic, but that only gets you so far. And then you want to add a little bit of the emotion to it, but then you also want to dial it back and have it be more concise. And so, how do you balance and manage all that? How do you get from point A to point B without being like too far in one direction or another?
Sure. Yeah. It's sometimes it's quite the balancing act. We will have vendors and folks come to us with really great ideas about what they've created and what they're selling. And the challenge that we have is taking that from an outside point of view and saying, how do we turn it into something that resonates? For example, somebody could sell a screwdriver and they're really happy about their screwdriver and it's a fantastic screwdriver. But if you tell people that, hey, we looked at it and everyone uses it as a paint can opener, then you sell a paint can opener. And let's talk about how that delivers value for someone. So you can have someone that's really caught up in the technology, and I'm an old computer science guy, so I get it. I've been there doing the coding, and I see something great come out, and then you realize that how it's actually used and how somebody achieves value from it is different. Often it's the idea of simplifying that folks will put a lot of benefits out there and say, look at all these things that it does, the Swiss Army strategy, the Swiss Army knife strategy, if you will. And what we'll say is, look, the reality is in a sale, you can only do really one or two things. You only help the customer. Most deals really hinge on one or two big benefits. So what are those big benefits? There's usually two or three supporting benefits. And a good rule of thumb for everyone is if it goes over five, you've probably made a mistake. So while your product may do a lot, ultimately for the customer, it probably only does two or three things that really deliver value. And focusing on those and really generating a positive value message around that is sort of critical to being successful. So you've got things that are, that big Swiss Army knife, but it's really only one or two things that really matter and getting them to really focus on that.
That's interesting to think about, simplifying and saying, here's all the big long list, but there's probably a way to order or prioritize that and be like, okay, well, you do have these benefits, but maybe if we just limit to the top two or three, we'll still capture 80 to 90% of what it is, and it'll actually get through. And if someone wants to dig deeper and find one little specific feature, then that's another path to be taken. And so I'm sure that with your teaching and your decades of this company being around, that you have some fun stories. So what do you have to share with us as far as fun stories, like, stress-filled, drama-filled case studies, success stories?
Well, we've done a lot of case studies. I think we've published over 1,500, and we used to do a lot of those on site. So I've got a lot of places I've ended up and odd spots where I've done case studies. Let me just kind of mention on the benefits side, I was talking about there could be two benefits that you drive, but one of the important things we help people understand is there are actually people think about benefits as hard and soft, and really there are four benefits, not two. And we like to think of them as direct and indirect. But you think about benefits as going from really powerful, like for instance, we're going to cut a cost. What's a strong benefit? What we call a first order benefit. You're really going to do that. Down to a fourth order benefit, which would be something like if we give our salespeople a new CRM system, they'll be happy, and that'll reduce the turnover for salespeople. So go from really strong benefits to really weak benefits. And that sort of ties back to some of the stories we've done, where we have vendors that will go off and say, I have one vendor say, boy, we increase basket size. And I said, okay, well, how do you do that? You aren't really an e-commerce company. What do you do? Well, we create software that monitors your website. And if it monitors your website, you can find out if there's something wrong with it. And if there's something wrong with it, you can fix it. And we know that customers that have a bad experience on the website are likely to not buy anything. And if they have a good experience, they're more likely to buy something. So we increase average basket size. And I said, well, you reduce plane crashes too. Because if you monitor the server that's checking people into the flight, then more people can check into the flight, so the airplane can take off sooner and avoid the thunderstorm at the end of the runway. So, it's those kind of really distant benefits that we run into where we say, okay, well, that's good, but let's take it from a broad story down to something that's really tangible. We get a lot of those where people have these broad stories and say, look, we build a house. Well, actually, you sell acorns. So let's talk about an acorn, not what you can actually, build with it if you had all that wood. So it's taking marketing folks and crystallizing it down to what is it that you're really doing for the customer, and can we take that and articulate a benefit message around it?
And what's that crystallization process like? I mean, is it as simple as the whole like the so what strategy, right? They say here's the benefit, and you say so what, and it leads to this, and you follow it down the path. Is it really that simple, or is there more to it?
I wish it were that simple. No, usually people are dug into whatever the benefit is. So often it's an effort of sort of showing them, is this really a strong benefit? Is it likely to appear, or do you have better benefits? So, you can look at a lot of different products. For instance, a CRM system that might be a SaaS-based system. You could say, sure, it will make your sales reps more productive. But one of the things it really does is it reduces your IT costs, because now you're SaaS-based instead of on-premise. That's a real tangible benefit. So if you show folks that that's actually a really strong benefit. The second benefit that you get is increased productivity. Well, that's good. It's not as strong meaning from a financial point of view as reducing the cost of IT. So just getting folks to think about it a little bit differently, saying, what's a strong benefit, what's a weak one, and just really laying it out for them, then get them to cut it off. Again, you go over five, you made a mistake. We have people that have 20, 30 benefits. And especially, we work with folks that do online tools. We do a lot of online tools. We help people frame their tools, but someone will give us a tool and say, hey, I built this tool, it doesn't work. And I remember I looked at one vendor, they had 64 items on the tool, comprehensive tool. And I looked at them and said, how many people have actually finished it? They said, well, none. Nobody's ever finished the tool. So you're wondering why you're not getting any leads from that. Let's get it down to the three or four things that really matter. So that simplification is something, especially around ROI. People think it's a complex topic. The fact is, it really isn't. Most people understand ROI. If you've walked into a bank and put money in a CD, you understand ROI. It's very simple. So if you make it more complex than it needs to be, you end up really making a mess out of your deals and making a mess out of your marketing message. So a lot of it is simplification, but it's usually just taking people step by step from where they are, which can be a broad message, to let's narrow it down to a few points that really matter.
Transformation. And it seems like a lot of our discussion here between your thought process and the problem that you solve is just that the big problem is that people are stuck in list mode, right? And they have this big list, and you say, well, a list is great, but what's the goal? What are we trying to accomplish? And people are getting stuck in the 64 items of your list, and you're saying they want to get from point A to point B. And it seems like a lot of your thinking here involves kind of finding like the fun story, something tangible, getting people to think. And then it seems like there's a lot of like selling the idea. Like you've mentioned about how like sometimes your clients are stuck in their ways and you have to kind of like be strategic about that. Or even when you talk about the product better, you say, well, you're doing this, or you kind of say like you compare it to other things. And so can you like unpack that a little bit about how just like you have to kind of sell the idea itself?
Yeah, actually, and one of the things in simplifying, one of the things I do when I talk with sales and marketing people, especially around building that business case, building the ROI case, is look, don't lose sight of the end result here. I'm trying to close a deal. So anything that you do actually doesn't matter. The only thing that really matters is I've got a contract at the end. So if I don't end up with a contract, no matter how good the business case is, no matter how complex all the marketing is, doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is a contract. You get 0 points for doing everything else. The only points you actually get is for closing a deal. So when you get the marketing folks to start to think about it that way, and the sales folks to say, what am I really trying to accomplish and how do I get to that? And often it's just simplifying your message to the customer. I know we're going to do a lot for you, but how do we narrow it down to the things that really matter? One of the things we say is think about the sales funnel and the typical sales funnel that you already know. We all know the sales funnel, right? It's qualify a lead, bring in a lead and qualify it and bring it to the next step and all those typical steps. We say, look at the funnel as two sides. You've got the marketing side that you already know really well. Let's take a value side to that because if I can paint a value message, then I can close a deal. One of the things I say when I talk to folks is if I told you that if you could if you raised baby alligators in your bathtub, you'd make money. Would you do it? The answer is yeah, of course you would. How much money is what everyone says. So, well, it's $5 million a year. There's a number above which you will raise baby alligators in your bathtub, and your spouse will say you're a genius. And even if they have to use another bathroom down the street or their neighbors, right? So, every deal you lose is usually around a value message in some way. You haven't created that value message for the customer. So again, going back to that funnel, 3 stages. Paint the big picture. How do you deliver value? Show how other customer references have achieved value, and then show how they will get value. 3 steps. So if we put that in that funnel and just work the customer through the funnel, then it becomes a very easy conversation with the sales reps that you already know. You already know how you deliver value. You already have references that have value. And you can already figure out, well, here are the 2 things that are really going to drive your deal. Of course, we'll do 50 things for you, but let's narrow it down to those two. It becomes a very easy conversation. And you can see I'm sort of simplifying down to 3 steps. That's all it is. But usually when I see people do some kind of value engineering team or something like that, it's a 50-page report that takes months to do and ends up undoing a deal and making a mess out of the marketing message. Simplifying, you end up giving somebody that elevator pitch that they can then use internally to say, I want to buy this product. That's why, because it's going to reduce my cost or because it's going to increase the productivity or something. The other thing, and you talked about big long messages, we see a lot of those feature benefits thing where there's a feature and a benefit and a feature and a benefit, a feature and a benefit. Really, for benefits, you can only do 3 things. I can either increase productivity, reduce cost, or increase profit. That's it. So all of your features drive to those 3 benefits. So you don't need that back and forth list. Just say, here are all the different ways we increase productivity. Here are all the different ways we reduce cost. Here are all the ways that ultimately that will generate more profit for you. 3 columns. That's all I got to do. So that, and you can see I'm simplifying, 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 but then it becomes easy for marketing and sales to focus on that and get that message to the end customer.
And I think we could all use some simplifying, right? In this day and age of the 20-minute podcast and the 8-second TikToks and the 2-second attention span on the phone, like simplifying is great, especially when we've been stuck in so many ways. And it's just, there's all these kind of sayings, right? They talk about Kaizen, they talk about a confused mind never buys. And it just seems like with a funnel, there's all these steps, and you say, well, where's the bottleneck? Where are people getting stuck? And you remove kind of the barriers, and then that seems to be just a lot of people's problem. And I mean, you said you're a tech guy, and I think we can relate a lot to just simple troubleshooting, right? Like you think about the number of times when I've gone to someone's like email opt-in form, and I've entered and I'm already on his list, and I enter the same address that's already a subscribed, I get an error message. What? Simple thing to fix. Or like even when you go through your own funnels and go through upsells, you say, I cringe at this one page and this one area where I got stuck, and it's just so many simple things to remove. And it can be simple, if we let it. And so it's great to kind of go through this sort of refreshing thought process that you're introducing to us, is like these benefits only do three things. And what can we reduce it to? And these final few minutes of our conversation here, Ian, I feel like, if you're okay with it, kind of getting a little bit personal. Can you tell us about, just like, have you struggled? Have you failed any time recently that you feel like sharing?
Boy, I feel like I fail every day. Some days, I come in here and the company's working well. It's all a bunch of employees, and everyone does fine. I go out and see if anybody needs help, and they don't. And so I walk back into my office and say, "Well, I'll write another blog item or do something else." I don't think that the struggle is always the challenge that you have running any business, which is once you solve something, you're always looking for the next one. So it's sort of I don't want to say not satisfied, but with everything today, while we're simplifying down to a few things, we're also picking up the pace. So there's that constant running. What do I do next? How do I continue to grow? How do I block and tackle? What else can I do to expand? And, for me, it's starting other companies, which you just end up doing and continuing to grow. And we've got a whole AI product that really went from nothing 60 days ago to about to be turned on and really fantastic. And the team's been working on that. So sort of putting and educating and helping and coaching the team. I see my biggest role here as a CEO is really a teacher. My job is to take everybody where they are and bring them up and make them better and kind of give them little tips. So my role has gone from day to day, managing a company to really more walking around guiding, see how I can help, and then staying out of their way, which has been fun. So I've really enjoyed that, but it does leave moments where you go, what do I do next? And sort of have to figure that out and keep going.
And what you do next is just teach, and you give us the lessons learned from your mistakes. That way we don't have to repeat them. And you hear that a lot about leadership, right? About how there's the tendency to want to control, but if instead you kind of guide them and teach them and help them solve their own problems, and before you know it, then they are autonomous. And that way you can focus on the next thing. And then with business, you hear about, failing forward, and how it's good to make mistakes, and it's good to seek problems, solve problems, lead to bigger problems, and that's just part of the adventure. And the alternative is putting your foot on the brake and limiting yourself. And who wants that? We instead like to tap into this amazing, exciting energy that you have going on. And so, speaking of that, speaking of
Yeah.
all these cool things you have going on, and the company and the teaching and the blogging, how do we take that next step with you? How do we find out what you're all about, what you're talking about? What's the call to action? What's the next step?
Sure. Well, I'd love to point people to Amazon for the book, The Value Sale. It is purposely a reasonable read, so I didn't go on for hundreds of pages. And I know it's finance. Take a read through it. It should help you frame how do you build that business case. Nucleus has been around for a long time, and certainly we've been helping most vendors and building business cases and understanding value. I think that's like a Gartner or a Forrester, same kind, except we focused on value. So reaching out, we're always available. So even to folks that aren't clients at all, send a message to hello@Nucleus Research if you need help or if you want access to research or if you have a question, we're always here. Our analyst team is very friendly. So we work with everybody. And certainly, there's no barriers to reaching out to our folks. Of course, we'd like you to be a client, but that usually works out in the long run anyway if we can help you. And that's sort of our attitude here. Always do the right thing. It always works. It always works out in the long run.
I love it. That's very inspiring, especially when everyone else is making it so complicated in all those steps. And if that's been the problem so far, then the new alternative is to distill it down and make things simple. So that's hello@nucleusresearch.com is the email,
Right.
nucleusresearch.com is the website, and the book is The Value Sale by Ian Campbell on Amazon. Get it, and you'll learn many things, especially if you were excited by many of the things that Ian had to share with us today. And so, as we're completely closing down our conversation here, Ian, you know all about the YouTubes and the social media. It's always fun to have those little sound bites and to end the conversation on a real big fun bang. So, do you have a favorite quote, moral lesson, or anything like that that's sound bite-ish for social media purposes to really just cap off our conversation?
Boy, you got me on that. I wish I could boil it down to one thing because there's always so much, but value always sells in the long run, and value distinguishes the winners from the losers, no matter what you think. So proving value, showing value is going to be your key to success long term.
Fantastic. It's all about value, and the value sale is where you should take the next step there from Ian Campbell, Chief Executive Officer of Nucleus Research. And we'll see you there. The value sale on Amazon. So thanks for being here, Ian.
Thanks. Really appreciate it, Robert.